All right, so today we're going deep on this whole Ukraine mineral deal thing.
Yeah, sounds pretty intense.
Definitely seems like there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, right? We've got these articles from the New York Times, BBC, and Al Jazeera.
Oh, wow. So we're covering all the bases.
Yeah, how to do it right. This isn't just some, you know, routine agreement, right? This happened right in the middle of a war with huge economic and geopolitical, well, everything.
Definitely some serious global implications.
For sure. And I think what's really fascinating is this whole power dynamic that's playing out.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got a nation at war desperate for support.
And then you've got a superpower like the U.S. with, well, let's just say a lot of leverage.
Exactly. The New York Times really lays out how the U.S. used that leverage to, well, kind of strong arm Ukraine into this deal.
Yeah, I was surprised to read about that. Like, the Times actually uses the words insults and threats.
Yeah, hardball diplomacy at its finest right.
So are you saying this is like a common tactic?
More common than you'd think, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's unsettling.
Think about it. During the Cold War, this was basically standard operating procedure for both the US and the Soviet Union.
Using aid as a bargaining chip.
Exactly. It's a way to exert influence, secure alliances, all that.
It makes you wonder about the true motives behind some of these aid packages.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's
Right.
never as simple as it seems.
And then you have Zelensky in this incredibly difficult position, right? I mean, the BBC highlighted how he initially rejected some of the proposals, especially that demand for $500 billion for mineral rights.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Basically being told to hand over a huge chunk of your country's natural wealth?
He even said something like, I can't sell our state.
Totally understandable,
Right.
right? He's trying to protect his country's future, its sovereignty. It's a balancing act with incredibly high stakes. On one hand, he needs the support from the U.S. to fight off Russia, but on the other, he can't just give away Ukraine's resources.
Absolutely. So walk us through what he actually agreed to. What are the details of this agreement?
Well, the final agreement is still a bit murky, but Al Jazeera reports that Ukraine will contribute 50% of future mineral resource proceeds to a joint fund for reinvestment in Ukraine.
50%. That's a significant chunk.
It is, and the U.S. would have the maximum ownership allowed by U.S. law, but not necessarily all of it.
Okay, so not a complete takeover, but still a huge influence.
Right, and that initial $500 billion demand was dropped.
Thank goodness for that, right? But what about security guarantees? Did Ukraine get anything concrete in return?
That's the thing, no firm security guarantees were mentioned in any of the reports we looked at.
So Ukraine is giving up a lot, potentially for, well, a lot of uncertainty.
It seems that way, and this whole situation gets even more complicated when you consider the past, right? The BBC dug up an old statement from Trump when he was talking about aid to Ukraine, where he said, we want to get that money back.
Hold on, wasn't that statement completely unrelated to this current deal?
It was, but it's still relevant because it speaks to a certain mindset, right? This idea that any support provided to Ukraine should be repaid with interest. It raises some serious ethical questions about the motivations behind these agreements and how nations should support each other during times of crisis. Is it purely transactional? Should it be?
It's kind of like this whole debate about the morality of profiting from a country's resources when they're in such a vulnerable position.
Exactly. And then you've got the personal dynamics between Zelensky and past U.S. presidents, which haven't exactly been smooth sailing.
Yeah, the BBC didn't hold back on that. They brought up how Trump called Zelensky a dictator, and there were those accusations about Ukraine being responsible for the Russian invasion. I mean, that's some serious friction right there.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely been tension, but they're still trying to work together, which shows just how complex international relations are. Personal relationships matter, but national interests often trump everything else.
It's like this constant push and pull between collaboration and competition.
Right. Exactly. And in this case, both sides need each other, at least for now. The stakes are just too high for either side to walk away completely.
Especially when you consider what Ukraine has to offer. Al Jazeera pointed out that Ukraine holds around 5% of the world's rare earth reserves. And those are crucial for, well, basically all modern technology, right?
Absolutely. Smartphones, computers, electric vehicles, military equipment, you name it, rare earth elements are in it.
So this deal isn't just about money or even wartime support. It's about control over key resources that could shape the future of technology.
Exactly. Whoever controls those resources has a significant advantage in the global tech race. This agreement could shift the balance of power in the tech world, which makes it even more significant.
Wow. It's mind-boggling to think about all the layers to this, right?
Yeah.
You've got a wartime agreement negotiated under immense pressure, a leader trying to make the best decisions for his country in a near impossible situation, potential benefits and drawbacks for both sides, and this whole geopolitical battle playing out over resources that are vital for the future of technology.
It really highlights how interconnected the world is and how even a seemingly isolated agreement can have ripple effects across the globe.
And for our listeners out there, this raises some serious questions. If a country is struggling, should other nations be allowed to profit from its resources, especially when the details of the agreements aren't entirely transparent? What does this mean for global stability and the fair distribution of resources in the future? These are questions we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. These are issues that affect everyone, not just Ukraine and the U.S.
This is a conversation that needs to continue. So keep an eye on this story, folks, and let's all stay informed and engaged.
It's more important now than ever.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been fascinating.
Until next time, stay curious.
And stay informed.